Good afternoon, gentle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie review podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris, and welcome to the first episode of 2016, a new year! Hooray!
Woo-hoo!
And as you could hear, Benjamin Curlee is joining me. How's it going, man?
What's up? Pretty good.
Oh, I'm doing quite well, I'm just, I can't believe even though we've started the new year, I can't believe like we're halfway through January.
I know, right? Oh man, seriously. Yeah, what's it? 16th? Yeah.
Yeah, 16th.
It has flown by quite quickly. It feels like it should be like the 5th or 6th for me, but yeah.
It was a little weird at first because I remember like it felt like the first 6 days of the year felt kind of slow. There was something kind of slow to it, and then I looked up, and I was like, oh wow, I can't believe we're only on the 6th day of the year. Wow, it feels like the 30th or something like that. I don't know, it just felt weird. Now, does January have 31 days to it?
I think it does. Yes.
This one does.
Yes.
2016, as 2016 January does. I don't know if next year will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the 31s and it's all mathematical. It depends on how they make the calendars. Anyway.
Exactly.
Who makes those choices anyway? Like, who makes the choice for February to be the 28th or the 29th?
I'm not sure. I know they've got some scientific method to it that they've decided, but I don't know. There's some rule of thumb, generally. Who knows? All I know is it's a leap year, and we'll be voting the end of this year.
Yes.
That's about it.
Our new president, and hopefully we'll get a good one. Anyway, we'll leave politics out of this conversation right now. Anyway, folks, we'll be talking about Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, the sci-fi classic that many consider to be one of the best sci-fi.
That baffles.
What was that?
The classic that baffles.
Mind-boggling. If you thought Memento was a little bit mind-boggling, this is more of the what the heck did I just finish watching?
Yes.
I got an intro story to share with you, but at the end of the show. But I'll talk about it. Been a lot of movie news. I did want to. Let's go ahead and just do a quick weekly segments. There was one little bit of movie news. I know there was the Oscars nominations. Congratulations to movies like The Revenant and Mad Max Fury Road for leading the pack with their nominations. Ben, do you have a go-to for a winner this year, or do you have anything?
I don't know. Unfortunately, this last year I really didn't see as many movies as I should. So it's like both of those that were primaries. It's like I haven't even seen him yet. So I don't know. From what I've heard, though, either one would be very worthy of it.
I'm sure. Let me look up the at least the Best Picture winners real quickly. I'm really shocked that Mad Max got the amount of nominations that it did. The Big Short, which I've not seen yet. Bridge of Spies. I need to see Bridge of Spies. That's the one.
Same here. Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn. I was invited to a press screening for that movie, but I just never got around to it. Mad Max Fury Road. The Martian. I'm so happy The Martian got some Oscar love. The Revenant. Room, which I've heard some good things. Spotlight. That journalist movie. I want to check out that one. That's one I've been wanting to check out. So yeah, congratulations to the nominees, and go get them. Let's see who wins. There was one thing I did want to address, and that was the unfortunate passing of actor Alan Rickman. I was just shocked. I mean, look, we lost David Bowie, and we lost some other talented people, but Alan Rickman, I mean, which the poor man unfortunately died from cancer, I believe it was.
I did not know he was as old as he was, though. I mean, 69?
Yeah, 69. I mean, that's not too old. I mean, he looks great for his age. I mean, you look at some of his pictures. I mean, he looks like a pretty he looks like a pretty healthy dude for the most part. But he. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, are you shocked of his passing? What are your?
It was unexpected. I mean, I have not been keeping up with him in recent years. I haven't seen any of his recent stuff, but like I never saw Harry Potter or anything, so I'm unfamiliar with any of that work. But it was quite unexpected.
Yeah. He was the villain.
He's a classic actor.
Yeah, I mean, a great one of the. I put down on it like one of the world's finest actors ever, and he was in movies such as Sense and Sensibility, which is I like that movie. A lot of people are like, what are you talking about? That's a great movie. And also a really interesting movie by Ang Lee, actually a Japanese filmmaker. Also. Die Hard 2. I mean, we all know him as the villain in that one. Hans Gruber.
2? You mean the first one?
I'm sorry. Yeah, the first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did I say 2? I'm sorry. The first one. Yeah. I mean,
good classic villain there.
Yeah, Hans Gruber. I don't know if any of you love this movie, Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah.
I saw that movie once. I don't remember the name of his character in that one. And he's done so many. Harry Potter. Professor Snake. I mean, he has been he was a part of that whole franchise. I don't know if he's going to be in the new, if his character is in the new one, that spin-off movie. I
don't know.
Yeah. I don't really care that much for Harry Potter. Sorry, everybody. But, it's such a tragic loss, and I'm still just like, I can't believe that a talent like him has vanished, or has, passed away, unfortunately. So our thoughts go to Alan Rickman and his family, but his work will continue to live on. So, congratulations, at least, on your body of work. Anyway, folks, so let's go ahead and jump into our review for 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Welcome to voice print identification. When you see the red light go on, would you please state in the following order your destination, your nationality, and your full name?
Moon, American, Floyd, Haywood R.
Thank you. You are cleared through voice print identification.
Thank you.
Quite frankly, we have had some very reliable intelligence reports that quite a serious epidemic has broken out at Clears.
I know there have been some conflicting views held by some of you regarding the need for complete security.
Something apparently of an unknown origin.
However, I accept the need for absolute secrecy in this.
This is in fact what has happened.
I'm really not at liberty to discuss this.
We thought it might be the upper part of some buried structure, so we excavated out on all sides, but unfortunately we didn't find anything else.
It hasn't been covered up by natural erosion or other forces. It seems to have been deliberately buried.
4-million-year-old black monolith has remained completely inert, except for a single, very powerful radio emission
3 weeks ago, the American spacecraft Discovery 1 left on its half-billion-mile voyage to Jupiter.
The sixth member of the Discovery crew was the HAL 9000 computer.
Everything is going extremely well.
One gets the sense that he is capable of emotional responses.
Well, hell, I'm damned if I can find anything wrong with it.
No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information.
Look, Dave, I can't put my finger on it, but I sense something strange about it.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Do you know what happened?
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't have enough information.
Made radio contact with him yet?
The radio is still dead.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? You read me, Hal?
Do you read me, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
Anyway, no, what you were just listening to was the original trailer for 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and a lot of unknown actors. I can't even remember their names, unfortunately. Okay, Keir Dullea, I think his name is, and Gary Lockwood, and Douglas Rain as HAL 900, the computer. So, also, folks, this is also us returning to our classic movie series, which we abandoned a while back ago, which was not our fault. We just got caught up.
There was a whole bunch of good movies that came out, so you only had so much time.
Yeah. But, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, before 100. I mean, we still got My Darling Clementine, Jezebel, and, what is it? The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Those are our last four in the series. And we'll do more, but, in terms of that series, these are the last ones that we want to finish up. But, so yeah, this is 2001: A Space Odyssey. So, Ben, this is a bit of an interesting movie.
Indeed
to
it
talk
is.
about. I guess I'll start with you. What has been your relationship with this movie, 2001?
Well, I saw it for the first time quite a few years ago. I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Just because it was, highly recommended as a classic sci-fi with groundbreaking visuals, which, by the way, they still hold up pretty well. Yes, they look dated, but the visuals still look good. So I've only seen it twice, once then and then here again. I always found it funny though. People always refer to it as this really confusing film. It's not that confusing actually. It's fairly simple. But just the way it's told, with very little dialogue, it's the ending that really throw people. It's like they think they have an idea on where it's going, and they're probably correct, but then they get to the ending and they're like, what in the world? And then they throw their old theory out, which was probably correct to begin with, and then they're lost from there on. So, but no, I enjoy it. It's long. It's a long film.
Yes.
When I complain about things being needing to be slowed down, I don't mean this slow. I mean, there's a point and a place for long cinematic takes. There were too many of them here. Yes. This film that was, oh wow, how long was it now?
68. So,
it was long.
It's almost 50 years old.
Yeah. But as long as, how many hours it went? What? 2.5 hours, I think?
It's the current cut is 142 minutes, so it's over 2 hours. It's nearly 2 hours and a half. So
yeah. So yeah, it's a very long film. I think it, content-wise, without the cinematic shots, just straight content, I think you could have communicated the whole thing in a half hour.
Okay.
Personally. But then you'd have a completely different type of film, and I don't think it would be the classic that it is today if you had done that.
Okay.
Part of what made it a classic was the thought-out, brilliant engineering that went into the sets and miniature design.
So. Yeah. I have a very interesting. Well, actually, I have a very neutral relationship with this movie, and what I mean by neutral is that I don't hate it, nor do I love it.
Yeah,
it's just there. It's like it's this interesting dish that it's. I put it on. I've seen it probably like 3 times, like from beginning to end. I've only seen it like 3 times from beginning to end, actually. Mm-hmm. And and it's just there. I mean, like, am I one of those people who consider it one of the greatest sci-fi movies, if not one of the greatest movies ever made? I don't know. That's where I kind of land
most
on.
memorable. How about we leave it at that?
It is. I mean, it definitely leaves you with that kind of like, what the heck did I finish watching? I mean, if in that sense of just an absolute like, what did I just finish watching? I mean, it's that kind. It leaves you with that kind of deep impression.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, if you were to ask me, like, what do you think are the greatest sci-fi movies ever made? Okay, I could tell you straight up right now. Okay, I would say the first Star Wars, Alien, the first 2 Terminator movies, and I would even, I might even put in, what is it? What's the WALL-E or something like that?
Yeah,
that type of those type of sci-fi films. Even though WALL-E's animated, but it still works as a sci-fi film. Which, oddly enough, thinking about WALL-E does kind of borrow some aspects of 2001. Those kind of long, drawn out periods, of just of isolation and no dialogue. You're just watching the daily lives of an individual and what he's trying to do, which is kind of mimics the first moments of the Dawn of Man sequence. But 2001, I recall watching. I didn't watch it the first time I watched it. Was like I was like probably like 9 years old, something like that, and the part that I recall coming into was the whole the Hal sequences, like all the stuff with Hal and on that ship specifically. Those were the moments that I remember the most. The Discovery 1 sequence and all that. I remember that's the part that I really liked. Actually, those are the parts that I honestly liked the most. The Discovery 1 and the whole sequence where Dave is flown into the monoliths, Stargate, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
But 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if I consider it one of the greatest movies ever made, or one of the worst. I don't think it's one of the worst. I can't say that, because this movie is beautifully shot. It is a beautifully shot, beautifully.
Yeah. I would throw it into art house category. You have these directors, they're successful, and then they're like, you know what? I'm going to do like a personal project. I'm going to do something that like I want to do. Not something that's necessarily money making, but I want to do, that has my message. And I think that is this film for Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. I put it like in the category of something like The Tree of Life, or something, or vice versa, like the Thin Red.
It's not, it wasn't, it was never designed to be a huge blockbuster or drama or anything. It was designed to, it was a message film, basically. It was very preachy.
Yeah.
It's designed to convey a point that the director feels strongly about.
Yeah. And also, you look at, and I recommend audiences. I actually recommend checking out a podcast called, I think it's called the Kubrick Cast, and listening to their 2001 reviews, and it's actually split up into like 5 parts, and it's really fascinating because they talk about Kubrick's just his journey throughout the creation of the film, and they even speak about when he first kind of had the ideas for 2001, it was more so kind of in the vein of how the West was won, of the space exploration, man going into the West and all that stuff, the foundation, man conquering, the universe, something like that, space exploration and all that stuff, and kind of also saying how man, evolved from beasts into the scientific genius that they are today. I'm just trying to think of where would we start. I mean, do you consider this film like a 3-act structure or 4 acts?
I
would say 4 acts because it does. I mean, you could technically say 3, but I would say 4 acts. You have the Dawn of Man. You have the whole monolith, the second monolith sequence.
I would say 3.
You would say 3? Okay.
I would say 3. I would say don't break it where they put the title cards. I would say the break happens to the 3rd act. The break happens when we find out Hal is going bad. I would say that's the break for the 3rd act.
Yeah. And now, again, I guess we'll go this by by act structure. So I guess we'll start with the Dawn of Man sequence. When I've revisited that sequence, and also just previous times. Now, everybody, I'm not a Christian. What am I saying? I'm a Christian. I don't believe in evolution or anything like that. It is interesting to see this film kind of present that viewpoint. But I don't know what it is, and I'm not gonna sit here and bash it. Of course I'm against it, but the thing that I find so amusing about, I always laugh for some reason during the Dawn of Man sequence, especially with the guys in the ape makeup. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, what was it? Like, I think like a year or 2 later, or the year before, you had Planet of the Apes, which you had phenomenal ape makeup work in those movies. Here, I'm actually not that impressed for some weird reason. I don't know. I mean, there's good like jaw movement with the ape makeup, but I'm always laughing because I guess it's because I know those are guys in a suit.
Yeah, it just looks a little too much like guys in a suit. Yeah, it's like all you can see is humans making those movements, and that is funny.
Well, I mean, and I think maybe to Kubrick's advantage, he said, okay, these are the apes that we came from, so to speak. But even then, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I can just tell you're not convincing me otherwise that these are, apes. I guess because I look at like something, and I mean, I know this is a different time. I look at like maybe like the Planet of the Apes movies, and specifically the newer ones, and then you look at the body language, and you can tell that they're doing the ape movements. They're doing these, the things with their.
Well, yeah, they've spent more time studying it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here it just felt like just a bunch of monkey guys just thrown into these suits, and I'm sure they were trained. But what are your thoughts on the whole Dawn of Man sequence?
Well, there's not much content to it. It's like, again, it's very simple. It's 20 minutes trying to convey one point. Basically, that point is, there are aliens, there are some beings out there in the universe who clearly take an interest in the development of man.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are either watching over it or they are shaping it. So that's basically the takeaway from the whole film, is that's what's going on. So, in each, major step in human, evolution, as it were, the monolith was there.
Yeah, it seems like I guess we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the monolith. One of the biggest mysteries ever is whether is the monolith an alien design, or is there something much more sentient? Is there something much more spiritual about it? It's the MacGuffin of this movie, so to speak, and it does trail across, all four. Well, actually, the acts, you got the this one, the second one, and even the very end. It really ties things together throughout the film. For me personally, I think I haven't really thought too much about the monolith. It's an amazing piece of just the look of it is really quite compelling, because you're just like, what is this? It's very simple looking. And also because Kubrick gave that really haunting, kind of voice effect to it, that voice like, all those.
That soundscape was very well thought out.
Yeah. And that's why I'm going to say it's probably something a little more spiritual, but that's why I'm looking at this thing and I get the sense, I don't know if Kubrick himself was an evolutionist, or if he, if I'm going to say, I think he was an atheist. I truly do believe that. But I think he was one of those atheists that did believe that there are more things in the universe that's guiding our destinies, or something like that. There's, whether he believed in God or not, I don't know, but he was one of those guys I would really think like he wouldn't deny the possibilities of God existing, nor would he be like, but if you were to ask him like, do you believe in him? Like, no, not really, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's something out there. That's the kind of mentality that I get from Kubrick. I don't know.
Yeah, he believes in a higher being or higher beings.
Something,
but that's about as far as it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like how, in some ways, that there is something, kind of, providential. There is something kind of guiding, humanity's fates towards bigger and greater, ideas. And that's how and also like it's funny, ideas, because you have that one scene where that ape is smashing all the skeletons and. He's using, he's forming a weapon now. Is it just me, or did I get like a biblical vibe from that moment, like a Cain and Abel moment? Am I going too far in saying something like that?
I don't think you are. I kind of felt that too. It's like, oh wow, all of a sudden we're going, we're taking a huge step. It's like it's a leap. It's a leap here from, we've got this peaceful, kind of bottom of the food chain, to all of a sudden top of the food chain, highly aggressive, completely changed their way of life, sort of moment.
Yeah, and then you see them eating. My mom was actually sitting with me when when I came to that moment, and she had to get out. She had to leave the room while that scene was coming up. They're eating all the
a little too much raw meat there.
Yeah. I was shocked for a rated G movie that they actually showed that. This movie's actually rated G, which is even more surprising.
Well, hang on. In the time period, I don't think they had a PG or PG-13. No, they had a PG. They didn't have a PG-13 rating.
No, not yet.
But your PG rating is like, that was actually up there a good ways. Like you could put like nudity in a PG film. At that time period, I believe. Yeah. So their standards were very different.
Yeah, definitely. But so the monolith has that kind of effect, and it kind of nurtures them, and it gives them the ideas of how to build, and then they come to that watering hole. I like how the movie Kubrick is expressing supremacy over strongholds or something like that. In this case, you have the water hole scene, and I don't know what it is when the monk. I always find just the physical performances of the monkeys or the apes to be quite hilarious, because there's this one monkey that jumps up and down, and he's like he's like flapping his arms up and down. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like jumping back and forth, and his arms are just like flapping up and down, and I think he's the one that gets killed. I just laugh. I laugh at that moment. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but then people call this like the famous jump cut. You know, the monkey throw the thing.
Oh yeah, it's a match cut.
I understand what it's. Mm-hmm. Really, I keep on watching that scene, and it's like the bone and the spaceship are not in sync with each other.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that well edited in that way. No.
And I don't know if that's Kubrick's choice. Like, well, it's not supposed to be perfect. But I don't know. Like, I do find it interesting that we don't see the man, apes turning into man, so to speak, because it's like, okay, if you believe in evolution, why are we not seeing the evolution?
Well, I think it was just kind of assumed.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. And then we jump 1 million years later into the future. And why are we not turning into apes? Did we just stop being... Go ahead.
No, nothing.
Say, I mean, why are we not changing, and why are there still apes running around? Did they just... The genes stops? What happened? Evolutionists, come hit me. Anyway, sorry. So then we come into the second act. Okay, I'm just gonna be very honest. Like, these two acts, I'm honestly, like, really, really... I mean, the whole monkey thing is hilarious to me. The second act with, which is just a bunch of just classical music, the Blue Danube, I think that's how it's pronounced. The Blue Danube is, I mean, I find myself waving my hand because I'm just following the music and all that, and I think it's, I like how, the classical music is used throughout this movie, actually, and that's one thing we haven't talked about too much because, about the music. I like how it's used because I think Kubrick, in my opinion, is trying to he is trying to capture the reality of space. Mm-hmm. He's trying to capture a true scientific reality.
Yes.
This isn't like the old Flash Gordon or serials, where you can just go at 100 miles per hour in space. There's no limits. It's here it feels a lot more real, and I think that's what Kubrick was trying to go for, and I give him a lot of credit for that, But this whole, I mean, as much as I like the music and some of the beautiful miniature shots.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if you're like a film geek and you just want to watch this stuff, this is a film treat for you. Yeah, if you want to watch that stuff, like model work, this is an excellent film for that. A little tiresome, but yes, it does work in those areas. But this is the one part of the movie that I think has very little relevance to the rest of the film, at least from my point of view. And it's just boring. Like yeah. You have that Dr. Floyd character. He goes to that one spaceport, and then he's talking to some of these groups of scientists
it's where you have the most amount of dialogue, and 80% of that dialogue is wasted. There's only a few lines in there. It's like, oh, okay, you're actually saying something important here.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically him and his, what is it, I'm just gonna call it the NASA spaceport because I don't remember what the organization that he was working for, but that's trying to hide the cover up the monolith. But there's a rumor going on, a so-called epidemic. That's the word that they used.
Some outbreak or whatever. Yeah.
I don't. That whole part to me, I don't know what it is. It just doesn't intrigue me that much. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole particular sequence?
Well, I mean, visually, that was probably one of the most impressive sequences. Seeing the guesswork that he did way back then on what technology would be like for us to live in outer space. The thought that was put into, okay, you know, the Velcro shoes and stuff in order to be able to walk across, you know, in a zero gravity environment. And the three-dimensional thinking that went into the spaceship too. You know, it's like, okay, what is a floor is also a ceiling, you know? Yeah. So that was extremely impressive. The engineering, the set design that went into that.
It still has a retro feel to it. It was made in the 60s.
Well, yeah. You see, and it's like, wow, that dial pad on that phone, that video phone, those are some old buttons right there. And the IBM computers they're using to navigate the spacecraft with. Right.
Yeah. Even the attire, like even some of the women's attire, there's something very futuristic about that. It feels like an alternate 60s.
Yes.
Look to it. You know, I always find that a little bit funny.
Yeah. No, it's without a doubt it's dated, but it made some pretty intriguing and groundbreaking guesses as far as, you know, what the future might look like in that way. And just the thought process that went into like the space station revolving so that you would have simulated gravity. It's just, you know, that's instead of just doing what, you know, Star Trek did, it's like, oh, we have gravity. We're not going to explain where we get it from. We just do.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, okay then. No, the thought that went into that, even though they didn't explain it, you could see very clearly, oh, that's why.
Yeah, and also, you know, you did have, Russia had done some space exploration at that point in time, I believe. Yeah, and there was some explorations at that point in time. You know, I can't remember if there were any photographs quite yet. I don't remember. But, you know, Sputnik had gone up into space. But, you know, Kubrick here, you know, the last film that he had made prior to this was Dr. Strangelove, and he spent like 4 years. He's, you know, and that's the style of Kubrick. Kubrick spends a long time researching his projects.
Okay, hang on. Just sorry. I just had to share. The moon landing was only a year later.
Yes.
Yeah. So quite a bit of space exploration had been done at that point. So anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, so, you know, when Kubrick, you know, and here's the thing with Kubrick, you know, him and Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote the novelization, or just the novel, they were both writing these movies, you know, concurrently. They were doing them at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Clarke, who was a scientist and who studied a lot of, you know, just, you know, science concerning space and all that stuff, you know, they were exchanging, you know, notes. Kubrick wanted as absolute realism or as much scientific fact as he possibly could. You know, he didn't want to do like Star Trek or something like that, you know, just fast, you know, pace, you know, like...
Exactly.
You know,
well, yeah, and this is where, like, Interstellar, it runs in the same theme of very realistic space exploration. Yeah.
Even though I would say, well, Interstellar... I've not seen Interstellar since that's I actually do own it on DVD, but I've not been able to revisit it. Just it's a very long movie, but but yeah, it's very grounded in its approach and the looks of it, and even like that scene with the lady, you know, the flight attendant, the outer space flight attendant, when she's just going around in that circle. You can tell, you know, her movement. I like that little touch of, like, you need to add some weight to the shoes. I was assuming that there was some weight on the shoes, so that way to make it look like she was trying to, you know, her feet were trying to grasp onto, you know, the floor. You know, I like those touches. I like those, and then, you know, with her going around in a circle, that's how real space, you know, physical, you know, walking would actually be to some degree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I like that stuff a lot. And you get some, again, and even like the spaceship shots, you know, like when that one spaceship is about to go into that rotating, you know, space station, it's a very slow shot, but it's real.
Oh yeah,
it's real. You know, you know, you're not going to go zoom in like the Millennium Falcon and like zoom.
Exactly, just and land.
It's none of that. You know, it's not 2,000 miles per hour. You know, there's you have you know, we haven't conquered that part yet. I'm just trying to think, and yeah, again, so many great miniature works. But again, this part for me, it just doesn't hold up as opposed to like the second half, which I really, really like. But, you know, so, you know, there's this whole cover up. They go to the second monolith, which I have heard is actually not the same monolith from the very beginning of the film.
Correct. Yes.
So apparently it's a little bit bigger. But who knows? Maybe the monolith can expand its size for a while.
Yeah. I don't. I dug into it. There's a lot that's clearly, obviously, unsaid in the film.
Yes.
That you are left to guess at. So I went and did some digging. Apparently, a lot is explained in the book that kind of parallels and is very similar to this movie that the movie was based off of.
Have you read the book?
No, I've not.
Okay.
But apparently what it was trying to say was that this was they're thinking that maybe it was deliberately left here as a guide to both let the aliens know that man had reached the stars, and at the same time point men in the direction of the aliens. I don't know. It's
a theory, right? It's a theory. I've actually heard this one interesting theory about the monolith, but I'll share in just a minute. But I like that idea. No, I like that idea that that whether it's the same one or not, that the first one was planted there to give man, or the apes the capacity to learn and advance their mindsets, and then the second one on the moon was more so a design to send a signal to the aliens that man had reached its current potential, that it was able to reach into the stars. Something like that. Mm-hmm. But even then, the aliens must have gotten mad or something like that, because then they send that loud ring sound, and then and then they
Yeah, I know. That's just never explained. It's like, okay, what was that? Did the people live? Did they? Yeah.
Okay, now here's the question.
What's going on here?
Okay, one big question I'm a little bit confused by. Were the three passengers that are in the Jupiter ship, are three of those from that sequence right there? I thought I heard something about that, but I'm not too sure.
Their names are actually said.
I don't remember.
I feel like that is the case, but I don't remember now.
I don't remember. And two, why would they be in hibernation? I actually thought as a little kid, I thought the noise from the monolith was so loud that it knocked them out or put them in a coma or something like that. Yeah. I thought that's what it was as a kid. And again, I've only seen the movie like 2 or 3 times from beginning to end. So,
well, apparently they were put in hibernation prior to the rocket even taking off, and those 3 doctors actually were trained at a separate facility from our 2 pilots. So our pilots had actually never even talked to these individuals.
Okay.
Knew nothing about them, just that they were trained, tech crew. They're
put into sleep, and then put on the ship until they got to their until they got to.
So there was huge amounts of secrecy, and that's what worried Hal. When he expressed concern to Dave, it's like this. Something doesn't seem right about this.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and jump into these last 2 acts, which personally are my favorite parts of the film. Those are out of the whole entire movie. These sequences with like Hal and the 2 pilots, and ultimately the Stargate sequences are my favorite parts. And what I like about the Jupiter, I'm sorry, the Discovery, was that it's actually it's kind of like a little intimate little thriller in an interesting sense. And not just the fact that it's Hal turns bad, but there's just something a lot more engaging. One, you get a lot more conversations, or a lot more, dialogue exchange between the actors, which I liked a lot more.
Yeah.
And two, I like, I love the voice acting that was done for Hal. Actually, it's one of those really rare voices or voice acting performances that it's done, the pronunciation and the tone, is pretty much the same from beginning to end. It doesn't change except for when Dave is changing the
is turning it off.
Turning it off. It changes. But it's a very rare voice to where you sense so much more. Even though it's the same exact, speech pattern or just the same pronunciation, you sense a lot through that voice. Obviously, it's a computer and it's thinking so much more. But I just loved, you sense the menace without it feeling, without him like going into that wicked, evil voice or something like that. You sense, you just sense the personality of this character. What are your thoughts on the Hal character?
Oh, brilliantly done. And you really feel for Hal. It's like he's very genuine in his desire to complete this mission, and you hate to turn him off. But at the same time, you realize the severity of, having him control so much, and he lacks the value for human life that another human would.
Yeah.
His whatever his programmed objective is utmost priority, even above everything else. So,
did you you remember Ash from Alien, the Ian Holm character?
Yes.
Did you see well, I can see where Ridley Scott kind of got the idea for Ash from Hal. Actually, I do see some similarities there. Who's very, the mission is set forth. No, it doesn't matter who gets in the way, dispose of them. You got to complete the mission. No matter the costs. Do you see Hal's turn or fall from grace? Supposedly, do you think it stems from that he began to feel a lot more superior? A sense of superiority, or where do you think his turn came from? Because that's one of the things that I've never really, again, the movie doesn't really answer that, or is it that he's just, where do you think that turn stems from specifically?
Yeah, well, here, I think it's funny because Hal actually, he portrays more emotion than pretty much anyone else in the film.
Yeah.
At least out of the two humans that are with him, he's the more emotional one. And you can hear the pride in his voice when he talks about, this is what needs to be done, or these are what my calculations say. You can hear the pride in that, the satisfaction that, I've done a thorough job. This is what, this is the problem. You don't need to second guess me.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was necessarily a sense of, partially superiority to humans, but I guess that's not what directly made him, go bad. I think it was more partially. I think it was that he did feel superior, and the sudden realization that he wasn't, that he was also susceptible to error. I think that's what made him turn. So not directly because he was superior, but more that he suddenly realized he wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. I don't know if maybe it was because, Dave was beginning to kind of question him, or Hal's curiosity kind of got the better of him, and that his curiosity was like so focused on the mission that it became like, I need to figure out what's going on. And I don't think Hal knew exactly what was going on with like the monolith.
No, definitely not.
He was curious. Now, have you seen 2010? The Journey.
I have not. It is on my list to see soon.
I got it. I watched a little bit of it, and I turned it off because I was just getting tired.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard it's a little bit more. It answers some questions from the first film.
Mm-hmm.
And they do bring that character back, and I know they actually bring in the creator of Hal, so maybe I'm just assuming that maybe that he was more so designed to be, an independent thinker, to be, to make these, these wrong choices that maybe, like a Prometheus type of thing, or Alien, where you're designed to specifically finish the goals, finish the mission that you've been set up for, no matter the cost type of mentality.
Yeah. And then while I was watching it, Holly was occasionally watching it with me, and she had, because she didn't want to sit for the whole thing. She's like, okay.
Good for you, Holly!
Yeah. So, she brought up an interesting point. I wanted to share it here, but she kind of saw it as that final scene there as, Hal and Dave are kind of battling it out. Perhaps it echoes back to the dawn of man, where we have two competing tribes, as it were, for survival. But here we have man versus machine kind of competing for this next stage of evolution.
Yeah. It's man against his own creation.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. And so we have this
like
battle here, which, man does come out on top again on. Yeah. But I don't know, it was an interesting thought, and definitely worth sharing. So
No, that's I love that point. I love that point, by the way. And I think it's a brilliant one too. But let's talk a little bit about the performance given by the actor who played Dave, whose name Keir Dullea, who played Dave Bowman. Don't you know a real Dave Bowman? Isn't there?
I do. Yes, exactly the same name, David Bowman. It's hilarious. I tease him about it.
Anyway, have you told him, like, hey, have you seen Hal lately?
Once or twice.
Because he seemed, at least to me, he's been like the poster child, so to speak, of this film. I actually like his performance. I know he's not given a whole lot to do, and I don't really know the actor from a whole lot. I know he's done like a lot of other like films and TV shows and stuff, but this is the film that people know him for. I gotta say, I like the subtleties that he kind of gives. He actually reminds me a little bit of Matt Damon's performance in The Martian. It's funny, we were just talking about The Martian a little earlier, and he kind of, there's that certain, he's just very calm. Well, the one thing that I found really funny about his performance was that, even when things just, even like prior, or even like afterwards, more so afterwards, he's calm. He's as calm as a cucumber throughout this whole, experience. And even when Hal turns, he's still calm. I mean, now, when he goes to the famous whole, open the doors, Hal, open the doors, he's still calm. Maybe his voice is escalating because it's like, this thing could actually kill me.
Well, yeah, there's a lot that's kind of just written into both his eyes and his eyebrows. It's like, he doesn't really raise his voice much, just the slightest bit, but his eye is just, it's like, okay, we can see a little bit of worry here as he's thinking this through. And yeah.
And, and even like, when we get into the whole, the Stargate sequence, I mean, that's some really good acting there too. But, I know there's not really to go off of, but again, he's just, Kubrick is great with actors. Let's just get that out of the way. He knows he manages to get what he needs from his actors, and he's directed some of the finest actors ever. I mean, he's directed Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Kirk Douglas, several times, Peter Sellers. So, and to see him work along with this guy is actually is pretty good. And I'm actually looking up his IMDb credits, and he was actually on Guiding Light and the soap opera. The Good Shepherd, and Black Christmas. He's done a lot of other things, but yeah, I thought he brought a lot of humanity. At least he brought a little bit of a concrete perspective, at least from my part. I did. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay.
Just agreeing.
I was just gonna say. I think honestly, this whole sequence right here actually has like the best camera work. Actually, I think because I mean, I know how they shot it.
The sequence in the room, the final, is that what you're
No,
talking
actually, I'm just like from the very beginning when we start the whole discovery.
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes.
like when there's like he's just like the guy is just like just going around the room horizontally, and he's going around, but it's in a much more like horizontal path, And he's just going around the room. That is amazing cinematography. That one shot, I'm a little boggled as to how they did it. I mean, in other shots, you can, when they have the camera set in a certain area, he's, you knew how they were shooting it, especially when the guy was walking towards you. It's like, okay, yeah, the whole thing is rotating around and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, amazing stuff there, and, just amazing camera work right there. I mean, we could talk about all that stuff, but
and then just the use of color too. We've got all these white walls, and then we've got their spacesuits, which are brightly colored.
Yeah,
it's like boom, pop, there he is.
That I think the Discovery 1 sequence is the least retro feeling. I think it feels more rightly futuristic. At least in my opinion, it feels that way.
I agree.
And a lot of people,
it does feel like a manned expedition would be nowadays.
Yeah,
like some slight design changes, but overall that is about the feel I would see.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then then you have the whole sequence with when it's funny when in that build up when Hal kills Frank, Dr. Poole.
Mm-hmm.
I like how there's just no sound effects. The horror of the situation is just the silence.
Yes.
The silence, and then he hits. Hal uses that pod to rams it into Frank. It's a pretty intense sequence, but the fact that it just cuts. I like how it just cuts to like it cuts to the pod, and then like it's like 3 multiple cuts to Hal's eye, I think it is.
Yes.
And then you just see the body just flying.
Mm-hmm.
That is just like, and then the fact that the body's just there, just struggling. Which, spoiler alert, folks, I've heard that in, what is it, book 4? Because Arthur C. Clarke wrote 4 books. That Frank survived, apparently.
Really now?
Yes. And then he finds out like the secrets of the monolith or something like that. I'm not too sure. So, I'm tempted to read the books. I'm actually really quite interested to read the books now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then so after that whole when he shuts down Hal, which by the way, the fact that he dies, or not Hal dies, but I mean that he's shut off.
Yeah.
Singing Daisy.
Yeah.
There's something kind of creepy about it.
Creepy and sad.
It's creepy and sad. It's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad. It's more so sad than the creepy, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, his pleading is just like, please,
it's as if it's like a child, because
yes,
because if you look at the bars, they're like memory banks and all that stuff. He's erasing his memories.
Yeah,
and
he's just like, I can feel it.
I can feel it.
I can feel it going.
And then I like,
please, Dave. And yeah.
Like in that moment where he says like, "Good afternoon, gentlemen."
Yeah.
And then he says, and then I think from there he goes into the whole like, Daisy, would you like to hear a song? Daisy. It's yeah, I mean, such massive props to the voice actor for that, but it's really compelling. And so we get into the final act, which is the whole gateway sequence and the Stargate sequence. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You finally figure out what was going on with the final monolith. Now, is this the monolith that was on the moon?
No.
Okay,
this is just some monolith that's floating and orbiting Jupiter.
Okay, because I again, I'm still trying to figure out, if this is, because I don't recall if they've ever said that that's the same, if that's a different one. They've said that so far.
The impression
two.
I got that high-pitched squealing sound that happened at the moon, that was a transmission being directed at the Jupiter monolith, and that's what told them to start the expedition to Jupiter.
Okay.
That's the impression I got. I can't confirm that, but that's what I.
Okay, so basically these things
together.
So basically these monoliths, the scream that they're giving, it's not just because they're passing knowledge or they're just like flying by and saying, "Hey, we want to pass some, give you some whatever, just give a cool sound effect or anything like that." They're sending signals to nearby monoliths, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. That answers that question. Okay, that makes a lot more sense in that state. Now the Stargate sequence, there's something kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie, there's something kind of sad about this moment, because not only is it we're wrapping up the story, but that this guy's life is about to be changed forever. Mm-hmm. And there's something, odd enough, I kind of feel sad for Dave in that moment, because the world that he knows is about to change. He's not going to go back to that world. But I love how Kubrick takes like just the imagery that he uses, just these colorful palettes, and just the all these fascinating colors. And I like how he uses like negatives, the stock footage of negative footage and all that stuff.
It was pretty. It was very pretty.
I know. I would honestly. This is one movie I would love to see on the big screen. Like, this is something I would love. Just that sequence alone, I would absolutely love to see that in like on a big screen format. I know that Britain had like a 70mm print showing. What was it, like about a year or two ago?
Yeah.
Would have loved to have gone to that. But
seriously, yeah.
So I'm gonna try to be on the lookout for a future screening of this film in theaters. But a lot of people have kind of wondered, is he being transported? Well, obviously he's being transported, but is he being transported into the world of the aliens? I think in some weird way, I've heard people say like, when he gets into that. That room, that room there, a lot of people think that he's being watched by the aliens. Do you agree with that, or do you think he is being studied or being examined?
I would say yes, watched. Okay, so not using just and only the film to try to guess. He's old when he gets there. He's already old. So clearly his travel aged him a bit. And then we see an interesting progression of him just living out his life there. Like it's odd. He sees himself, but he doesn't and we just kind of jump and change perspective, and suddenly it's an older him. So it's a very fascinating and clever progression of time, one I've not seen used before.
Yeah.
Normally you just see crossfades or whatever going on, to show passage of time. Well, this was very, very interesting the way they did it.
Yeah.
So going by just the film, there's really not a lot to go on. I would say, yeah, probably being watched, obviously being kept there.
But
from what I picked up researching it afterwards, it apparently, according to the book, yes, he is being watched. The aliens are watching him, observing him, trying to gauge whether or not humanity's a threat.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you about the Star Child, I guess.
Yeah.
That thing, but we'll talk about that in just a minute, so leave that thought. Theory. We'll just leave that for the very end. But I like, he gets there, he's an old man, and again, I don't know if what he has seen has turned him into an old man, or he has been floating in space for a very long time. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know if this whole thing, if we're just going by movie, I'm going to probably say, I'm just going to go by movie time, in my personal opinion. I'm just going to go by movie time. So his life is being progressed so quickly, in the blink, in the so-called blink of an eye, so to speak. And I like how, he gets there, he's an old man, and then I like how he notices himself at the dinner table.
Yeah. And we slowly see stages of it. It's like, okay, first he's in the pod, he's afraid to leave it.
Oh, I love the way.
And then suddenly he's outside the pod and he's exploring, but he's still in his suit. It's like he's still afraid.
Yeah.
And then we see him eating dinner. He's obviously grown accustomed to this. It's, part of his life.
But I like how that maybe it's like, I like how he turns around, he hears the breathing, and then it's he turns around. I actually think that his mind is being transferred to the new entity, if that makes
possibly sense. I don't know if it's actually it could be that way, that we're just seeing time. Yeah, that we're actually, time is progressing within 5 minutes and he's aged that many years. It could be. I would argue, though, that it's not that.
Okay.
I would argue that it's a combination. It's little, what's the word I'm looking for? Not montages, but little, snippets. There's another word for that. But little snippets of his life just kind of going. And so when he turns and looks at something, it's not that he heard himself, per se, or maybe he did.
Or he has memories of wait a minute, wasn't I just? I like how he's at the dinner table and then he looks around, and maybe it's not like I heard something. It's wasn't I just here a little while ago? And the cameras.
I want to say that. Okay, so example, when he's in the bathroom and he hears someone eating dinner, I want to argue that he didn't actually hear anyone eating dinner. It just looks like he did. But what we're seeing is a blending of two different times. We're looking at the past and the future at the same time. He's not, but we are. And that is how it is used for us to jump forward in time.
Okay, so you're saying
he's not actually seeing it, but it looks like he does.
Okay, so from the trick of the alien, so to speak, or the monolith, whatever it is, it's giving him two different, or I would say three, because wait a minute, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, because you got him in the ship, him as the old man in the ship, in the spacesuit, then you have him eating at the dinner table, and then you have, him as an old man, as a, dying in bed.
Yeah.
I guess you could say those are three concurrent, or I'm sorry, 4 or 5 different timelines that he's witnessing at the same time, or at the same time, or one is able to see as opposed to the others. Does that make any sense? Okay,
I see what you're saying.
I
don't know.
Dave in the pod you can see the old man, but he can't see the rest. But even then that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, that would.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's honestly, that's that scene right there is actually I like the debates that scene can have, because it's like there's a lot of conversation that you can have with that particular sequence. And then you get the Star Child.
Yeah, that's where it confuses people, and a whole bunch of people are like, yeah, okay, I got up to this point, and then, what?
My sister says, what the heck was all of that about?
And that's where people throw out their theories, which were probably correct, and they're totally baffled and confused about the film. I think it's pretty clear that, as we've seen at the very beginning, and it just seems like an obvious theme to have, that at the beginning the monolith either witnesses a evolutionary moment, or it starts an evolutionary moment.
It gives the gift of...
Exactly. And so here at the end we have the same thing. We have it either witnessing it, but I would argue it didn't witness it, it gave it.
Yeah.
So I would argue that both times these supernatural beings, these otherworld beings, stepped in and affected human evolution. So I would say that at the end, the monolith and whoever's behind it deliberately jumped him forward another evolutionary step.
Yeah.
That would be my argument.
Okay. Now you mentioned a little while ago about the nuclear message, the anti-nuclear weapons idea. I think that's made clear in the book. That's what it's supposed to represent, or at least that aspect is made clear. In the movie, if I'm just going to go by the movie, because I get the sense it's a message about reincarnation. Ultimately death is just the pathway to a new beginning, so to speak. Well, in a weird way, Dave.
Yeah, I could see them.
Death. Dave never died. He just aged rapidly and then was reborn. We never saw him die, so to speak. And then he sees the world, which my sister always says, like, what is this all about?
Now, hang on. Was that Earth? Because I didn't see any land masses. So I'm confused as to whether or not it was Earth.
I would assume it would be Earth. What else would it be?
I don't know. I don't know. Unless it was just some, like a Mormon mindset where now he's the god of this planet. He's been set as the god over it,
I don't know. I mean, I always assumed that it was Earth. I mean, let me take a picture. Let me take a look. 2001 ending. I would assume.
Excuse me. It probably is. I didn't see any distinguishable land masses, so it threw me off.
Yeah. Let me see. I got a picture right here. Unless he's looking at the Pacific. Unless he's looking at the Pacific Ocean, and he's maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's like, ooh, water! I want to go down there and play. Wait a minute. Why am I in this tube to begin with? My sister says that she found it so creepy that they made the baby look like him, like Dave.
Yeah.
Well, and then I'm looking at some
interesting CG.
That was just a little. That was a mod. Actually, that baby is actually located at the Los Angeles Film Art Institution.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the prop still exists, and the monolith.
So it's actually prop. Okay, they lit it really interestingly then, because it threw me. It's like it looks like some really rudimentary CG or something.
Yeah, but and it's funny because I'm looking at the image with the little baby or the fetus in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. It's like there's no mother. When you think of a mother, when you think of a birth, you think of a bed. The mother lying down or the carrier, on a bed or something like that, and giving birth in a weird way. So I don't know if in 2000, whatever it is, 2010, Dave is still a baby, and then they find him like, hey, Dave, wake up. Like, wait, I want to play. I don't know if it's going to be that type of thing. But what has been your interpretation of just the ending? I mean, do you want to, I guess you can bring in the book. I mean, do you kind of bring in the book aspect, the whole like anti-nuclear war?
I don't see that at all in the movie.
No.
Like, yeah, apparently that is like the point of the book. He goes back and he like destroys all nuclear weapons or space stations or something like that.
Really, the baby does that?
That's what I gathered. I mean, I have not read the book, so I may be completely incorrect here.
Okay.
I don't know.
I would assume.
I don't know. I leave
like
it
a
at
Superman, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay, here it is.
Yes.
It's actually, this 2001: A Space Odyssey is a prequel to Superman the movie. So
It's
what you're
Superman's
seeing
origin
right
story,
there,
guys.
yeah, what you're seeing right there is the fetus for Krypton, maybe. I think the cinematographer and the production designers from that movie and Star Wars were actually involved with this film. So
I could see that.
Let's talk a little bit about, like, I guess we'll talk a little about the influences of this film, real quickly, because when watching this film, I saw a lot of Star Wars and Alien in this, more so Star Wars, but I did see a lot of, I did see some Alien, but a lot of
with the miniature work, certainly.
Yeah, you see a lot of that, in here. I'm trying to think. Did you hear about the story about the score that Kubrick actually had a guy come in, recorded an actual score, original music, and actually it's actually available. You can actually find it online, I think on Amazon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He just didn't use it.
He didn't use it.
Huh. Wow.
So he some artist created some music, and then Kubrick was like,
I hope
"No."
he got paid for it.
I would assume he would be. It would have been like, "Hey, you're hired, and then just give me some music, and then you're doing volunteer work basically. So we'll pay you after that." But which I've not listened to the unused music, so I would like to actually take a. I don't know if it's the original recording or if it's actually just the re-recordings of going off of the original, like. Music sheets or something like that. But for any collector out there, I would say go find it if you can. So, but what did you, I guess the final piece that I would like to talk about is the use of the classical music. I mean, what are your thoughts on that particular, the use of the classical music and if it fits, the situation?
It's beautiful. And it is the only reason that those long edits work.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
It is the only reason. Anything else? And it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with Holly earlier today about classical music. Classical music is a really fascinating thing. It's listening to classical music. It sounds bad unless you treat it like you would a movie or a book and actually pay attention to it. It can't be in the background. You have to actively pay attention to it. And so when you have these long, drawn-out scenes, which, I mean, they are beautiful, just to have that classical music, just the depth in the music, it gives those long edits more depth.
Yes.
And something to grab hold of.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree, and I think it helps, just carry those scenes much longer. It helps to carry those scenes, I think, in much better ways, and I think it just works. I just think it works so well. Gosh, I think we've kind of covered all we needed to with 2001: A Space Odyssey, so I think we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. So, Ben, do you recommend 2001: A Space Odyssey?
I do, but not as something you would casually watch. No, I would recommend it as a film study, certainly. And then anyone interested in the visual arts of film, absolutely a must see there. Because without understanding the origins, the roots of where good art comes from, visual arts and film, then you're gonna have a hard time mimicking it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I again, I was at the very beginning, I was talking about how neutral I was about this film. And, it's a movie that I would say I would recommend it if you have the patience for it. I know that there are some people out there who are not, like deep thinkers or anything like that. They want a little bit more fluff and all that stuff. This is a movie that requires you to think, a little bit more. And that's what you get with Kubrick. Kubrick is a man thinking, filmmaker. He has you dwell on these ideas, themes, and thoughts. And here's the thing too, Kubrick himself didn't have any specific answers for this movie. Even though he wrote tons and tons of notes, he himself didn't have the answers. He was one of those guys that liked leaving it to the audience interpretation. And, whether you like Kubrick or not, I mean, I know he's a massive, he's adored amongst film fans, but I think amongst his films, amongst, the general public is kind of hard to chew on. But I do recommend it if you're a film fan, and also if you're interested in space exploration. I think this movie gives a definitive look, with the exception of the evolution aspect. I do think this film gives a definitive look at space exploration and discovery. I think this is a movie I definitely would recommend. And if you could see this on the big screen, check it out. I would love to see this on the big screen. I mean, tomorrow they're going to be playing Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid at the local AMC theater. So, I mean, more than likely, this movie's around the corner somewhere. So,
yeah.
So, anyway, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up as we wrap up the first episode for 2016. So that's a wrap up right there. So Ben, where can people find more of your work?
They can find a lot of my work on indyvfx.com. That's INDY and the letters VFX.com.
Okay. All right, folks, and you can find our show on iTunes. Please leave us a review there and download our shows. We could definitely use some more reviews and some more subscribers. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Please follow us on those pages. And you can email me at s2spodcast@gmail.com for future requests and for just for information about future shows. Also, very soon, folks, we're going to be finishing up our classic movie series with, My Darling Clementine, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and Jezebel. We're going to finish up those. And eventually we're going to do Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I'm actually a sucker for that. I actually am kind of interested to see what they do with that movie.
I'm slightly curious as well.
I think Ian Mathad, it was funny when we did the 50th episode, Ian Mathad was like, we made a joke about we need to do a commentary track for Pride and Prejudice. Well, it's we got a Pride and Prejudice movie for the guys, so maybe this could
yeah, exactly. We're good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, so. Now down the road, it's have you seen Pride and Prejudice? Yeah, of course I have.
Yeah.
Which version? The zombie one.
The zombie. So we're going to be doing that, and also commencing very soon, we'll be doing our Dark Knight trilogy and Man of Steel commentaries very soon, and also 2 roundtable discussions for Superman the movie from 1978, the classic Christopher Reeve Superman film, and Batman 89, the Michael Keaton, the first live-action Batman movie from the 80s.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes, I'm actually excited about that one. And also our official live review for Batman v Superman, which I'm kind of excited for, even though I'm not really overly excited, I'm kind of excited at least for a good action movie, at least nothing more. Also coming very soon is our Top 5 Favorite Films of 2015 episode. So, special guest Alicia Johnson may be joining us. We're still working out her schedule, but I'm hoping everyone will come together and do our list. So I'm really excited about that one. Anyway, folks, you can catch us next week, and have a good night. Cheers.